everyone, and welcome to the Rankings Report. It's a new month, a new episode, and we've got no shortage of shakeups to talk about with new UFC champions since the last time we talked. Now, the one fight everyone has been talking about after last weekend, of course, is that insane knockout of Alistair Overeem by Francis Ngannou. Forrest, it was announced immediately after that Francis would have the next title shot against Stipe Miocic. But my question for you, as the vice president of the Performance Institute, where Francis trained for that fight and will train for the next, are you just terrified of him now or what?
I was terrified of him to begin with,
right?
As we all should be. However, I do think Stipe has a good wrestling game. He has a better, well-rounded game, and that could be a really good fight. You know, I love matchups where the challenger is actually going to be a favorite over the champion, and I think that's something that'll happen here. Stipe's been underranked as a heavyweight. He does have the most defenses of anyone, or he's at least tied for it, right?
Yep.
So we'll see how he does.
Lightweight also had an insane weekend, with former champion Eddie Alvarez handing Justin Gaethje the first loss of his career with a hard-fought, just absolutely absurd fight of the night. So where would you like to see Eddie go after that fight?
Eddie Alvarez, if he could fight for the belt. He could fight Poirier again to be #1 contender, or he could fight the winner of Khabib Barboza.
Yes, I mean, because Eddie moved up to #3 in the rankings.
Deservedly so.
Yeah, and he's a former champion. So do you take that into consideration when you're figuring out who is the next title contender?
I do, because he hasn't lost to Tony Ferguson yet, and that's still a good matchup that I think people will be excited to see.
Well, we got no days off here. We're very busy at the UFC. And the bout I'm most excited to see how it impacts the rankings is tomorrow night's main event with #4 Cub Swanson taking on #6 Brian Ortega at UFC Fight Night in Fresno. Forrest, could a dominant performance from either Brian or Cub kind of set them up to be the next contender for Max Holloway?
Absolutely. If you think about it, Frankie Edgar's injured. Lamas is coming off a loss to Holloway not too long ago. I think if Ortega wins, and in a 25-minute fight, the way he fights, there's a good chance he could beat a Cub Swanson. He actually loses a lot of rounds. He loses a lot of 1s and 2s, and he loses almost every fight right up until the point when he breaks his opponent and wins. Yeah. I would love to see Brian Ortega and Max Holloway fight. I mean, the two guys with great gas tanks, great chins, tough as they come, and they would basically kickbox each other in 4-ounce gloves for my amusement and yours.
There's a December main event that I know you're particularly interested in. Chris Cyborg versus Holm at UFC 219. Holm is the #2 ranked women's bantamweight currently, and Chris Cyborg is #10 on the pound-for-pound list. She is the women's featherweight champion.
Let's not sleep on Holm here. Remember, she does all the things well that Cyborg does poorly. So Cyborg likes to come forward in a straight line and attack. Holm, being a southpaw, she does a real good job of moving to her right. She counters with that left hand really well. She's a natural-born counter fighter, and I think that's the perfect style. When people kind of try and attack her, she does really well. I think it's a perfect matchup for her.
On this episode's Unranked, Forrest and I are going to give you our top UFC moments from 2017. All right, I'm going to take it serious for a second and talk about UFC 216 Vegas Strong. The UFC is a Las Vegas-based company, and in October, Las Vegas faced an unthinkable tragedy. And UFC 216 was the first live sporting event to happen in the city after that, and Las Vegas rallied around the Octagon. We had first responders in the crowd, we had survivors in the crowd, and the fights were incredible. We saw one of the greatest finishes of all time when Mighty Mouse armbarred Ray Borg. And it was like that was a special night for the city of Las Vegas. So that is my story of the year. But Forrest, I know.
It's going to be hard to top that one, really.
But, you know, we've got some of the best fights of the year. 216 had that crazy finish, but there were amazing fights throughout 2017. And for me, I picked Pettis versus Poirier.
Which is, you know, a great pick, nothing wrong with that. Is not the best fight of the year.
Well,
I had my best fight of the year, not my favorite fight, the best fight of the year, I'm gonna go ahead and say it, was Justin Gaethje versus Michael Johnson until Justin Gaethje fought Eddie Alvarez.
Can't
and
even argue this.
That is the current best fight of the year.
And you're right.
You're welcome.
I wrote mine before UFC Detroit, so
that's
fine.
why it's good to do your homework in the last minute. Well, as I was telling you earlier, I literally stood up and yelled at people around me to stand up because we're witnessing something amazing. That's a once-a-year fight, guys.
Yeah, That was incredible. I'll give you props. Your pick was correct. Favorite press conference moment? I'm not going to go with just one moment. I was fortunate enough to be on the Maymac World Tour, and every single one of those press conferences was absolutely absurd. We'll start with Los Angeles, where Conor wore an FU suit, and then we went to Toronto, and Brooklyn, and then London, where Conor grabbed Floyd's head, and the whole thing was bananas, and I just was scared and excited every single moment.
My favorite moment of the year was actually a fight. It was a fight versus Colby Covington in a boomerang. And to my recollection, from what I saw, it looked like Colby Covington lost to a boomerang.
Okay, you have a favorite finish, and it's a great one. I'm gonna agree with you on this one. Rose Namajunas, right?
Oh, absolutely. When she knocked out Joanna Jędrzejczyk with the left hook, I was surprised because I thought if she caught her, it would be like with a kick. I never knew she had that much power in her hands. Her hands looked great. She looked on. She was so calm that I mistake her nonchalantness for fear, but she was never afraid. She just didn't give up. She just doesn't care, and that's what I love about her.
Well, let's just stay on this topic of Rose Namajunas, because for my personality of the year, I'm gonna go with that time Thug Rose was just looking into the camera and everyone next to her was smiling, and then Rose just gave a death stare.
It's a 100-mile stare. And for that, she's actually my hero because I looked her deep in the eye and I couldn't tell if she was gonna kill me or bake me some cookies.
Right.
But
That's sort of her personality overall, what makes her so great.
I think I love it, and I think even more importantly, I think the general population is like, oh, there really is something special about this girl. This is not an act at all. Nobody can put that act on. She's, again, one of the unique personalities that you only find in MMA because crazy people fight people in octagons for a living.
Well, it'll be hard to top that, but somehow I have a feeling 2018 will find a way, especially if Conor McGregor's involved. But thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back in the new year to talk about what's new in the world of rankings. What is it, Forrest?
And we will not talk about Conor McGregor because he's not going to fight between now and January.